So
Hmm. And so,
yeah.
so what does recovery look like?
Yeah, so I did a lot of PT. I actually saw Tommy a few times at PT. We had the same PT in Boulder. And I like saw him walking out. I'm like, oh, I guess I'm at the right time. We actually had the same surgeon at the Stedman Clinic. So I'm like, oh, I feel like I'm like on the right path. And we'd be like, I'm like, oh shit, we just see each other. We're like, oh gosh, but we're getting better. I did a lot of PT. Like I couldn't at first. I couldn't walk, which was really demoralizing. It was
Was that
really
because of
ugh.
pain or being physically incapable, or what? Like what exactly stops you from walking?
It was balance. So like I didn't my brain like of course like I had to do the full like 6 weeks off of like non-weight bearing. So I was just like I did a lot of like crawling around on the floor. But last summer was just like just crawling and like scooting around on the floor. And then when I could put weight onto especially my right foot, the one that lost all the toes, I would just immediately fall over because my brain didn't know how your toes like are when you think about walking, it's like your toes spread and you like walk, right? And when you lose that and everything's just like tight. And I hadn't had the ability to like move my foot yet. Now I can move like the inside of my foot that can creates balance, but my brain didn't know how to do that. And I could feel it was the wildest thing because I could feel my brain like looking for my big toe specifically on my right foot. And because it wasn't there, it would just like freak out and I would fall over. So a lot of just like retraining that neuromuscular connection and like proprioception, which is like where your body part is in your, like in space. Because when you lose it, you don't your brain like still thinks that your body part is there that you've lost. It hasn't created that disconnect yet. So a lot of like I basically like relearned how to walk on the treadmill was super helpful because you can hang on. It's like training wheels for walking. So like you have it on like 1 mile per hour, like hang on and just like kind of like lower your body weight onto it. And then walking like having trekking poles and then just a lot of balance exercises like the balance board. There's something called the Mobo board, which is like a round board that like helps with just moving, just like to regain all the neuromuscular connections with your body. But it was a process for sure. But now like I was saying, I feel like my balance might even be better than it was before. Just spent so
Yeah,
much time.
were there any particular breakthrough days or moments that you remember? I mean, how it's a super long, slow process to relearn how to walk, but were there any moments from it that stood out to you?
Oh yeah. I mean, like I remember like when I actually like, could walk, that was awesome, like without falling over. I was at the I did um a lot of my PT at the climbing gym actually in Louisville and up near Boulder at the spot. And like I would go to PT and then a lot of it was just like that time that you spend in the gym after. 'Cause it's like a PT session, you get like an hour, they kind of like teach you what to do, and then it's kind of up to you to like go and do that on your own. I feel like that's the way that you get better. Yeah, that was awesome. And then just being able to like stand on one foot, like stand on that foot was huge. Like just to like, be able to balance on my right foot without falling
Yeah,
over.
were there any moments it was like the first time you walked down the street in Boulder again or something, or walked around in your or even like walked in the snow again or something? I mean, what were some of the major milestones for you?
Yeah, I think like one of the biggest milestone that I remember was like when I went back to climbing again. Like when I went um in the gym, just like I couldn't obviously like fit my feet into climbing shoes. So I was just wearing like approach shoes and just I remember that. I remember just like being at the top. I was on like a 5'6" or something. And just like I just remember like literally being at the top of it and just like crying because I was like, oh man, like it's gonna be like shit's gonna be okay. You know what I mean? Like it's gonna be okay. Like the body's adaptable. Um, like it just went from like so daunting. I was like, okay, I have my career as an athlete, right? That's one thing. And then I have my career as a nurse. That's another thing. And both of them require you to use your feet intensively. I was like that, like what? It's just like there's so many things that I was just like, what am I going to do? You know what I mean? Like, what is my future going to look like? Not only as an athlete, but just like my life in general. If I, you know, because when you go from not being able to walk, and it's also crazy when you go from like being on a big mountain and like all the training you do before it, and then all of a sudden you come out and you're like in a wheelchair. It's just like such a like, but there's no time to think about it. It just happens so quickly, right? It's just kind of like, so.
Yeah, where did you draw the strength or the motivation to see you through recovery, to see you through the whole process? I mean, there's so much uncertainty, and like you said, with you being a professional climber and a nurse, and both of which requiring your feet. Like, how did you manage to, like, yeah, how did you deal?
I think I was just like, this is like, for me, that was the only option was like, just figure out how to do things again. I mean, there wasn't even a question of like not figuring that out. It's kind of like when I was talking about like saving my toes. There was no question, like nobody was going to cut off my toes. Like that wasn't going to happen. And I think like, and then it did, right? And then it was like, there was no option to like not get back into walking and running and climbing. And I think having like the support system that I did too, like with my partner Andreas, who, it's a huge, he's like, this is going to happen. You're going to do this. And like giving me like both that like supportive love, but then also like the tough love, I think is important in recovery too. Of someone just telling you to like, literally like, you need to do this. And like pushing you when you can't push yourself kind of thing, I think is really important.
You mean like actually doing the PT, that kind of thing, like doing the hours of recovery work?
Doing the PT and then just doing like, yeah, I mean, there was a lot of crying. I'm not going to lie. There was like a lot of,
Yeah,
I mean, like a
I can
lot of
imagine.
crying, right? Like a lot of crying on the bathroom floor and a lot of like waking up in the middle of the night crying. And like, that's okay, right? Like, it's like okay to feel your feelings, but also like, it's nice to have someone to be like, okay, but now you're going to go do that, right? Like now you're going to like get up and you're going to like move forward. And I think that's like a really important, contribution that I'm very grateful to have like that support system. And then my PT in Boulder as well is very like, just, kind of like, he's like, the first day when I walked in, I'm just like a mess. And he's like, not only are you going to walk, but you're going to run. And I'm like, I can't even like freaking stand up right now, so it's like just having the people believe in you too. I think it's important to help you believe in yourself.